Senator Kennedy continued an epic rant that forced Amy Klobuchar to sit silently and take the heat, while in a modest studio tucked in the heart of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the air pulsed with anticipation as Brian, the host of the fiery political show, adjusted his microphone and leaned into the camera, his face lit by the soft studio glow, radiated the energy of a man on a mission. He greeted his audience with a rich southern drawl and unapologetic conviction. "Welcome to Pulitz," he announced, his voice cutting through living rooms across America tonight. He declared, "We're diving headfirst into a scandal that'll make your blood boil, the shameless waste of your hard-earned tax dollars by a bloated, out-of-touch government." Brian wasted no time unleashing the fury. Senator John Kennedy had just lit up the Senate with a fiery takedown, skewering Amy Klobuchar and the Democrats for defending absurd government programs that sounded like bad jokes but were shockingly real. "Buckle up, folks," Brian warned, because this mess is deep and we're unpacking it all. His show had become a lifeline for Americans disillusioned by Washington corruption, a platform where he used sharp wit and relentless scrutiny to expose the powerful. He leaned in, eyes gleaming. "Let me set the scene," he said with a half-smile. Senator Kennedy, that silver-haired bulldog from Louisiana, stood in the Senate chamber this week and dropped a list of government spending so ridiculous it bordered on parody. "This is your money," he emphasized. "Money you sweat and sacrifice are being funneled into projects that belong in a late-night comedy skit." And who's defending it all? None other than Senator Amy Klobuchar, clutching her pearls, as if these absurd programs were the foundation of America's future. "Let's talk about what Kennedy called spending porn," Brian said, lowering his voice and raising eyebrow. "Stuff so insane it makes your stomach churn. $3 million to produce Sesame Street in Iraq, Big Bird, and Elmo teaching ABCs in a war-torn nation." Brian shook his head in disbelief. "Now I'm all for kids learning, but halfway across the globe at that cost. Come on, folks, that's not charity, it's insanity." He threw up his hands as the camera zoomed in. "And it gets worse, 3 million more to Zambia for circumcisions and vasectomies. I don't know about you, but people in Baton Rouge would probably prefer that money go toward fixing our roads or funding our schools." Then he rattled off more $500,000 to buy electric buses. In Rwanda, 67,000 to give insect powder to children. In Madagascar, insect powder. What in God's name? Is that this isn't summer camp, it's taxpayer money being thrown at things no one can even explain. And don't even get me started on the $3.6 million going to Haiti pastry classes, cyber cafes, dance, focus groups, and support for male prostitutes. Yes, male prostitutes. He repeated for emphasis, "This is real, folks, and it's your money." Then there's $833,000 for transgender people, sex workers, and their clients in Nepal. Brian shouted, leaning in closer, "Whose signature is on this? Because it sure isn't Congress." He slammed his hand on the desk, his voice trembling with frustration. "Kennedy's message," he said as loud and clear, "this isn't just wasteful, it's betrayal. These aren't choices made by elected leaders, but by unelected bureaucrats throwing taxpayer money into whatever pet project catches their eye, and Kennedy is done with it. He's demanding a rescission, which means yanking the funds back before more is wasted across the country." In the polished chambers of the Senate, the scene Brian described had played out like a political brawl. Kennedy, with his southern charm and sharp intellect, stood at his desk, holding a stack of papers, speaking with the authority of someone who'd spent 8 years watching the circus unfold. "Mr. President," he said, "I've been here long enough to hear everyone talk about cutting spending. It's like saying you want to go to heaven, raise your hand. If you're ready to go today, laughter spread." But Kennedy stayed serious. "Most people want to live a bit longer, and that's how it is with spending cuts. Everyone wants them until it's time to do it. Well, I'm done waiting. The American people are done waiting. Their money is going to pastry classes in Haiti and insect powder in Madagascar. And it has to stop." As he spoke, Senator Klobuchar sat across the aisle scribbling furiously in her notepad. Known for her calm demeanor and fierce dedication, she wasn't about to let Kennedy dominate the floor without a response. When her turn came, she stood, her voice calm but unwavering. "Mr. President," she said, "this attack on public broadcasting and international aid isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. These programs are not fluff, they are strategic. NPR and PBS educate our children and keep communities informed. And international aid isn't charity, it's national security. Fighting Ebola, malaria, and bird flu over there protects us here," she declared, each word deliberate, each sentence a direct counter to Kennedy's firestorm. And with that, the Senate chamber held its breath, caught between two competing visions of America's priorities, one rooted in cutting every cent deemed wasteful, the other defending the investments she believed were vital. Flu don't respect borders, and if we don't confront them where they begin, they will inevitably reach our shores. We've learned this in Minnesota. where our Somali American community has seen firsthand the chaos unfolding in Somalia. When America shares its resources in a smart and targeted way, we don't just help others, we help ourselves. Amy Klobuchar's words were met with nods from a few colleagues. But back in Baton Rouge, Brian was watching the footage from his studio, and he wasn't buying any of it. Oh, Amy Klobuchar's got a silver tongue, doesn't she? He said, smirking straight into the camera. She talks a big game about national security and helping communities, but let's be honest, most of these programs are sacred cows to the Democrats. They're not about saving the world. They're about pleasing their voter base and keeping their pet projects funded. And don't forget who's running NPR, Catherine Marr, the CEO, who got grilled in Congress after she said the First Amendment is a challenge because it makes it hard to censor information that's not journalism, folks. That's control, that's propaganda. And that's exactly why people are losing faith in these institutions. Brian leaned back, his mind racing as the puzzle came together for him. This isn't just about a few $1,000,000 here and there. This is about something far more dangerous and deliberate. There's a reason they're pushing all this nonsense, he said, lowering his voice to a near whisper. You've heard the phrases, right? You'll eat the bugs, you'll live in the pod. They're testing the waters, folks. They're seeing how far they can go with this agenda, whether it's feeding kids insect powder in Madagascar or pushing these called 15-minute cities where everything you do is tracked and monitored. This is about control plane and simple, a global elite trying to reshape how we live. And they're using our tax dollars to do it. But here's the thing, we're watching the American people are waking up, and we're not going to let this slide. As the show cut to commercial break, Brian's words still hung heavy in the air. He told viewers to stay tuned, promising to dig deeper into the fiery battle between Senator Kennedy and Amy Klobuchar. This isn't just about budgets, he said with rising passion. This is about who gets to shape America's future, you the people, or a bunch of unelected bureaucrats and elites who think they know better. So stick with us, because we're just getting started. The camera zoomed out, but Brian's intense gaze stayed fixed on the audience, a fire defiance in his eyes as he prepared to carry the battle forward in the United States Senate chamber in Washington, D.C. The atmosphere was electric, the kind of tension that builds when ideas clash in powers on the line. Polished desks gleamed beneath the chandelier's soft light, and the air vibrated with anticipation as Senator John Kennedy stood tall, his silver hair reflecting the light like a torch in the fog. He gripped a thick stack of papers, each one a piece of evidence, each line a blow to the waist. He was about to expose with the drawl of the Louisiana bayou and a blend of indignation and humor. He addressed the presiding officer, Mr. President. He began sweeping the room with his eyes. I've been in this chamber for 8 years, and I've heard more talk than action on fiscal responsibility. The American people are fed up. They want the madness to stop. They want us to quit wasting their money on programs so absurd they make a hog blush. So let's get to it, he said, his voice rising as he held up the first page. $3 million to produce Sesame Street in Iraq. Now, I love Big Bird as much as anybody, but are we seriously claiming that puppet shows are going to bring peace to the Middle East? Kennedy's Republican colleagues chuckled, while across the aisle, Amy Klobuchar sat upright, scribbling fiercely on her notepad, her posture unyielding. Kennedy pressed on $3 million more for circumcisions and vasectomies in Zambia. I'm not a doctor, but I think we got bigger needs right here in the United States. Then there's $500,000 for electric buses in Rwanda and $67,000 for feeding children insect powder in Madagascar. What kind of priorities are these? He thundered. This isn't compassion, it's lunacy, and the American people deserve better for something called insect powder for kids in Madagascar. I don't even know what insect powder is, Mr. President, but I'm betting the folks in Shreveport would rather see that money fix their potholes. The chamber erupted in laughter, but Kennedy wasn't finished. He flipped a page, and his voice sharpened. And get this, $3.6 million to Haiti for pastry cooking classes, cyber cafes, dance focus groups, and Lord help us, male prostitutes. $833,000 for transgender people and sex workers in Nepal. This isn't a budget. It's a circus. The room buzzed with murmurs, some senators nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Kennedy's message was unmistakable. These weren't programs Congress had debated and approved in the open. They were concocted by unelected bureaucrats, quietly diverting taxpayer money to projects that seemed to mock the very people funding them. This is why I'm calling for rescission, Kennedy declared, slamming his stack of papers on the desk. We need to claw back this money before it's wasted on more of this nonsense. It's gut check time, folks. You either believe in fiscal responsibility or you don't. And if you vote against this, in my opinion, you ought to hide your head in a beer. The chamber fell silent as the waiter's words hung in the air. Amy Klobuchar, her expression locked in determination, stood to respond. The senator from Minnesota adjusted her glasses and spoke with a calm but urgent tone. Mr. President, she began, I respect my colleague from Louisiana, but his rhetoric oversimplifies a complex issue. Cutting funding for public broadcasting and international aid isn't just short-sighted, it's dangerous. Programs like NPR and PBS are vital to our educational system and provide critical resources to communities that rely on them. And let's be clear about international aid. Those $3 million for health programs in Zambia are aimed at preventing HIV and AIDS, disease that could escalate into a global crisis. If ignored, the funding for Sesame Street in Iraq is not about puppets, it's about helping children in a war-torn nation find hope and education. Even the nutritional programs in Madagascar that sound odd, like insect powder, are about tackling malnutrition in new ways that can save lives we can't bury. Our heads in the sand, Mr. President. When we invest in global stability, we invest in our own security. Klobuchar's words drew nods from her Democratic colleagues, but down in Baton Rouge, Brian watched the live feed from his poly studio. His jaw clenched. Oh, Klobuchar is good, I'll give her that, he said, leaning into the camera with a wry grin. She's got that Midwestern charm, making it sound like every dollar we spend abroad is saving the world. But let's cut to the fluff, folks. Is she really defending the American taxpayer, or is she just protecting the Democrats' sacred cows? Because when I hear about millions going to pastry classes in Haiti or sex workers in Nepal, I don't see national security. I see waste. Brian's tone grew more animated, his hands slicing through the air as he pivoted toward another target, NPR, and its CEO, Catherine Marr. And let's talk about public broadcasting, since Klobuchar is so eager to defend it. NPR is run by Catherine Marr, who just a few months ago got grilled in Congress for saying the First Amendment is a challenge because it makes it hard to control speech. That's not journalism, folks. That's censorship disguised in a shiny title. Brian pulled up a clip from Marr's testimony, his voice thick with sarcasm. Here's Catherine Marr, former Wikipedia executive, telling Congress that free speech is inconvenient because it allows people to say things she doesn't like. And this is a woman running NPR, an organization that's supposed to be neutral and funded by your tax dollars. No wonder Kennedy's had enough. No wonder the American people are tired of this. NPR and PBS aren't about unity anymore. They become ideological platforms. And Klobuchar's out here acting like they're beyond criticism. Well, I say it's time to pull the plug. As the studio lights dimmed, Brian leaned back in his chair, his gaze narrowing. The clash between Kennedy and Klobuchar wasn't just a fight over numbers. It was a fight over the soul of the country. Kennedy, in Brian's view, was standing up for the working people, the ones in small towns who wanted their roads fixed, their schools funded, their voices heard. Klobuchar, he believed, represented a system that had forgotten its duty to the taxpayer system, that propped up feel-good programs that couldn't withstand real scrutiny. This isn't just about dollars, and since Brian said, his voice quieter, but just as intense, it's about trust. When unelected bureaucrats take your money and spend it on insect powder or Haitian dance groups, they're breaking that trust. And when senators like Klobuchar defend it, they're telling you they don't care what you think. Back in the Senate, the debate raged on Kennedy. Unfazed by Klobuchar's rebuttal, doubled down. I've heard all the excuses, Mr. President, he said, his tone edged with frustration. Everybody says they want to reduce spending, but when push comes to shove, they protect their pet projects.